Okay, so just on 11:30 local time, just a little bit of a look at DXY to sort of kick us off. Because obviously, like it's been having this sort of bounce through this week after that strong sort of sell-off from NFP. If we pop it onto the daily, gives a bit of a better idea of probably where we're at the moment. So, look, we sort of expected there would be some sort of a bounce after this sharp sort of sell-off and that, and it seems to still be sort of persisting, sort of pushing up through this zone here. It is starting to reject from this previous support area. So we are seeing that sort of from a technical standpoint, looking like it's playing out basically. So what you'd expect with these, as I've said a few times, is to move down, find support, move up, find resistance, and then the next move should be, if this whole sort of move is real and correct, should be a selling opportunity to come down, and then first target is to tackle the previous lows, and then obviously from that you sort of determine how strong this particular sort of move and trend is. If it goes down, then of course you're locking in your lower low. If it sort of holds there, you've got your double bottom, which, as I said yesterday, could be potentially leading into a range play, or you could just get a double bottom, come back up, take out this top here, and then you've got a double bottom and you've got a measured move target, which would put it back up, probably similar to sort of closing the gap up the top over here. But first things first, you need to get the rejection from this zone, which we're in right now. So let me get this one out of the way now. So for that, we need to obviously sort of get down. Like we had quite a long sort of doji candle on the daily there. It's a bit hard to see with the sort of red one on the background, but you can see this. Oh, it closed very, very flat. So that's a strong sort of rejection from this zone. So what I want to see is a little bit of a sort of a drop down, sort of take out yesterday's wick as a start. And then obviously that would sort of be leading us to a little bit of a pushback down. You haven't seen the RSI, like it is coming down to the point where it might sort of be looking to sort of twist and turn up. Certainly if we get another positive day pushing up, you could expect this to start to sort of aim up a little bit as well. And this would sort of cross over and start to move back in this direction. But as of now, I am still expecting a little bit of a cooling and a sort of a target sort of on this lower level here. One other thing I will just point out as well is that this is what I've been saying, sort of with the gaps on DXY. It's a bit hard to see on this chart because you know this TVC charts, they open 15 minutes earlier than the hour with DXY, and sort of sometimes can sort of fudge where they are. But if you look at this, this is one of the opens here, and where was the other one? This is the other open here. A little bit bigger. But realistically, there's your close. As I said, this candle here, although this is on an hourly chart, this is actually only 15 minutes of trade. And where it does actually sort of open is this next candle here. So your true gap is actually this section here, and same with DXY here. So they're your actual true gaps and that. But even so, it's small little subtle things. But this is what I've been saying. Sort of 9 out of 10 times where we do see the gaps intra-week with the DXY, throughout the session or the bulk of the session, we expect it to sort of trade through those zones. So let me just get these ones off. So yeah, obviously this is a bit of that grind up the second day in a row for DXY. Oh, sorry, it was the third day. But we are starting to see a little bit of a cooling off here. It did punch through the previous highs up this section over here, though I do believe this was sort of around the time that we were getting some ECB comments coming out, which were sort of saying that they're sort of like they don't seem to think anything more needs to be done or something to this sort of effect. I'll just check those. So yeah, there's a couple of sort of comments sort of coming out from the ECB. Nothing that I can see that is like screaming overly sort of dovish, but it obviously had that effect on the market as that sort of ran up the top here. But because it wasn't really like it, these sort of moves where they're kind of more just commentary tend to have sort of knee-jerk reactions, I find, with the market. It's not sort of like, you know, you've actually had a bit of data drop, which, okay, now people need to readjust their books and they need to, you know, sort of change their positions based on the new sort of actual concrete data that's sort of come out. these are all just sort of speculative, we need to slow down here. We're seeing risk over here. We're expecting soft landings. Tightening's got a long way to go. Like all these sort of buzzword kind of things, and the market reacts, and we saw that push off up here. But obviously, because there's nothing sort of concrete with it, it didn't really seem to hold so much, and certainly sort of seemed to come down quite sort of rapidly afterwards as well. So that's what gave us our sort of long wick, the sort of sell-off into the end of sort of US session yesterday. So again, sort of be watching for where we're going to be seeing the gap come out here to sort of give us an idea about where the market may want to be taking this. But as I said, I'm still aiming and sort of looking down here, potentially closing. I suppose we did close that gap, didn't we? So we came back, closed that one there. We do have this little gap over here from Tuesday, but yeah, we'll sort of have to sort of see how this one plays out. But certainly, yeah, that one came down and closed it towards the end of the session. So if we sort of flick on to gold, gold right back down into this pullback entry. Disclosure with this, I jumped in a little bit early. I didn't sort of hold out on these ones. But, I think one thing to take away from this is obviously we could see this sort of rounding effect that was sort of coming. Hence we sort of have it marked out. Sort of, if you look through all the extra bits and pieces drawn up on the chart, this is the measured move down to this zone over here, which was we achieved or got from our, and you can see in the yellow here. Actually, I'll put this one in the blue as well. Whatever, that one, that sort of wedge that we had sort of set up here, and that sort of break to the downside here. That's given us our measured move based on the size of the wedge over here, and that's obviously sort of come and played out here. If you zoom out a little bit as well, we are also coming into these zones that we've seen as previous. I'll put it onto the daily. Where are we? Yeah, so we're coming down into previous resistance. As we know, previous resistance is going to be our support zone down over here as well. So I would imagine with this quite sort of sharp sort of sell off this week. I mean, where we look, I think it was 92 it opened at. Yeah, so 92 down to 50. So 42 buck for and change sell down is quite sharp. I mean, when you think about it, it was just sort of rolling sideways for a little bit there. But you've got the measured move played out if people were just looking for a medium term short. And obviously we've got this support area just below where realistically you could be dragging this one up here. That's just where I particularly tend to have it because I don't like my ranges to be, 10 bucks wide or anything like this. But this kind of zone as well. So you'd expect part of the market being like, okay, this is previous resistance. Now it could be a good sort of point for support. You've got sort of people that were short who maybe held through this zone. They'd be liking to close out and just get out of their positions. That's going to add to some buying support as well as they sort of close their short positions there. What I do expect sort of moving forward here, obviously, you'd like to sort of really see it sort of build a bit of a base because, we had this little channel sort of coming out here. It tried to push out, but it just could not get through. And really, yesterday was just flat, flat, flat. And this was really the break zone. Here we saw a little test down, and then that second break, back test, and away she went all the way down here. I think the reason majority for this to be sort of selling down at the moment would be predicated on the sort of Middle East situation. It just seems to have sort of, I don't know, just died off a little bit in relevance according to the market. Like, obviously it's still going on and all this kind of stuff, and I get that all that stuff's kind of horrible, but as far as the market's concerned, using it as a driver, that is what got it moving up through this, 200 buck move to the top side here. The fact that sort of that's kind of died off a little bit now, I think is also playing into it that, it's not sort of, people are looking to sort of bank their profits a little bit, not necessarily hold out because that sort of driving force is no longer there. If we have a look on to the other chart. So yeah, you can see this sort of almost sort of head and shoulders we had sort of playing out here. So this obviously has a little bit more to go for the downside for its measured move. But yeah, certainly at the moment, I would say, look, I mean, it's at best going to have to do some grinding down the bottom here before it sort of finds a base and sort of confirms a little bit more of a sort of push up. So gold, I'm not looking to jump back into too super quick. As I said, I'm still in the belief that we can sort of get back up around this 2,000 point. But I think it's obviously now it's proven that it's got a little bit of sort of work to do. We can sort of drag. That's a bit of a sort of resistance that we could sort of look to sort of get above to sort of justify sort of moving back up the top side there. Not too happy with that bottom line there, but I think let's just chuck an alert on this one. Cool. So yeah, if we get a little alert going off on that, it could be worth having a bit of a look at. But I would say sort of probably above this sort of 70 line seems to be a little bit of its short-term sort of resistance that you'd want to sort of see a break above this zone over here to sort of qualify to sort of get back up towards the top over there. One quick thing as well, actually, just while I think of it, is if you chuck it onto the monthly, gold's never been able to close a month above 2,000 or above actually, where was it, 1991. And obviously it was coming screaming up here. I think with sort of like a day to go, it was above 2,000 for the month. So when you look at it like this, I mean, it's certainly, I mean, what are we at now? It's the 9th. So we're only a third of the month through. It's still got time that this could sort of push back up and flip to the top side. But again, this is probably another reason why sort of people are sort of happy to sort of sell it off a little bit. You don't have the driving force behind it. From a technical standpoint, it's trying to achieve something that it hasn't done before, i.e. the close over 2,000. That was unable to happen. So again, that's just from a technical standpoint and a fundamental standpoint that people are looking to sort of like just lighten their sort of gold long positions. I don't think it's in a sort of case where it's going to go and dribble all the way back down here, but certainly a little bit of cooling while it thinks of it. If we can flip this monthly candle, I get back above sort of like 86.90, which is obviously is a little bit of work, but gold when it gets onto a run, it can punch 30 or 40 bucks pretty easily. So what I mean, if we can get back and flip this monthly candle, then I think that's going to be setting off a lot of alarm bells for people. Cool, and just jump across to Aussie, get back onto a realistic time frame. Okay, so Aussie continues to obviously disappoint after its big sort of breakout run. It's sort of coming back here. I think if we chuck it onto the daily, we probably see, I think we're sitting around the 61% of this move currently. No, a little bit, 50. So, again, 50% of it given back. We're coming back into this previous zone where, like, previously in time, I mean, it has chopped through this a little bit, but this is why we've got this marked out here. Because, you can see time and time again that for whatever reason, they've valued the currency, whether it be long or short, or just looking to find some support through this middle zone here at 64. So I would expect at least a second effort for Aussie to sort of drive back up, because you want to get, like, that's how you sort of determine the strength of these moves. Like, you do get V-shape moves, like V-shape recoveries on the down, sort of reversals from the lows, but also, of course, from the highs as well. But generally, what you'd be sort of looking for is the move. Is this move up? Find resistance, bang, find support, whether it's here, could be down, here, whatever. You'll find support at one level, and then you get that second drive up. And this second drive up is what's going to determine how strong the move is, because this is going to either sort of give you the lower, it's going to stop here and then come back down, which in that case will give you a lower high, which means obviously the sellers or the buying pressure isn't there to sort of back up and overcome obviously the sellers. So that's obviously going to be looking a little bit more of a deeper pullback. You're going to get a push up here where you could potentially have a double top situation where, obviously we've come back up to the top, and then we could be either looking at a ranging situation or, a measured move, sort of like positioning for a bigger move to the downside, or you're going to keep moving through. And and then you've got your higher high, and then you can start to sort of draw up your channel and say, okay, look, we've got higher highs, we've got higher lows, and on we go, and sort of pushing through here. But you need to get this second move to drive up here to determine this. I mean, as I said, these things are never sort of guaranteed. So we could sort of see a moment where, it sort of comes up, hits this resistance. There was all the fundamental thing of everybody expecting rate rises, all this kind of stuff. We got the rate rise, horrible impact, no impact. Okay, sweet. That was the reason we were buying it. Let's put it back in its hole. And you could get something play out like this. But I do think, coupled with DXY sort of selling off, which again is, Aussie's not part of DXY, but it's just a broader US dollar sell off across the market. I do expect that'll sort of give us at least a little bit of energy to sort of push back up to around this sort of 64, 60, 64, 70 zone. I did say in yesterday's video that sort of the breakout was at 50 and I think it got to 49. So it did get that push up and it attempted it. So you could sort of say that, look, this was the second effort up, but if it was, then you're looking at a lot more of a deeper downside, because obviously if you were sort of looking to sort of get onto this short and you go, okay, that's the move back up, came back up here, kissed the 38, and then bang, pushed in, and also it's taken out the lows, previous lows, and so you would expect something along these sort of lines to move down towards around that 61, if this were the case. But I think the fact that the DXY sort of potentially selling off could sort of be enough to sort of give it a bit of a push to at least sort of get it back up into a smaller, tighter little range in the low 64s, at least just for now. But we're just going to have to wait to sort of see how that sort of kicks off today. One thing that did drop Aussie down yesterday, so it was an interesting one, because typically, we got that sell-off of DXY at the end of the day, US session, and obviously inversely you'd expect, well, broad sense of a sell-off there, well, they'd sell against the Aussie as well, but that wasn't the case. So we had a situation where Aussie was dropping and also DXY was dropping. So I think the reason that the Aussie was dropping off there was mainly due to this copper sell-off. So we're getting a little bit of a sort of head and shoulders kind of happening over the side over here. We've broken through the channel. We've done the back test. Now we're sort of on last line of support, which is what we drew up yesterday. So market's come down here, it's ground to a halt. That's fine. It's thinking about it. If we've got the alert set up here. So if we sort of come down, I don't know why this BOJ. It's probably a previous alert. Anyway, we've got copper sort of coming down here. If it can't hold this support, then I'm going to call this pretty much a sort of a failure to break into this upper range. And I'd expect it sort of back down around that sort of 363 kind of zone. A couple of reasons. I couldn't work out why it was selling off at this point, why it picked this high, because of course my price target was just a little bit above this. But what I'm sort of thinking is, if you look at this, if you look through all the scrap, this fib here, so from the highs up over here, drag it down to the lows over here, we're pretty much coming in within a whisker of the 61% retracement of that move. And then I sort of actually didn't have this line as far as it is now. I dragged it through just to sort of have a look. But if you zoom out and put it onto, say, the daily, might be able to see it there. This is, of course, the big falling resistance that we've been trading off since back in sort of March. So that was the top end side of that triangle, which obviously we've seen it sort of respect a number of times. That again didn't hit it exactly, but we're talking a couple of centimeters, couple of cent. I guess it's a couple of centimeters, but a couple of cents here as well. But obviously that had quite a sharp reaction, and which has sort of caused this little sell down here. So with these, we can sort of start to drag these highs across here, and again put an alert on this one. copper falling resistance. So you want to see a big push back up to the zone over here. I can't really sort of make anything out of this in terms of a channel or anything. I mean, you could be looking at something along like this. It's a little bit of an overshoot, and you've got a bit of obviously sort of it's matching up with these highs, matching up with these lows. So we could be seeing potentially the bottom of a channel, downward sort of facing channel in a confluence of this horizontal support down here. So if we start to see a little bit of a push up here, you know, I mean, this is something that we're going to have to contend with and have to sort of pop through to the top side if we're going to see any sort of further growth in the short term with copper. Finally, with China, again, it is just supporting this zone. Like we've marked it out, we've looked at it, you know, 100 times. This is the actual move that I've been sort of talking about for a couple of months now, which to me is the confluence of, if we zoom right out here, this big support, sort of rising support throughout the year. We finally got there to have a touch up. Again, we know that from the horizontal that the buyers are sort of sitting here, and you can see again they've tried to push back up here. It's not coming out with a lot of force, like it hasn't sort of got over those previous highs. So if we go back to the daily, it is a bullish sort of little bounce here, but you'd want to see it back above this wick of this little zone that it's created here. So if we just go, oh, another one. That's your little zone just for now. The highs and lows of those wicks. Recovery above this one, you've got then to contend with previous support, potentially as resistance to sell it back down anyway. But I think for the downside, which is what I've been looking for, I think once you get down underneath this 726 wick that it just put in yesterday, I think that's finally going to be that confirmation for the downside. Again, it all really comes down to what market wants to do with US dollar. Obviously, if we're seeing the DXY sell off, you could be seeing a broader sort of sell off with US dollars, which of course would involve the Yuan cross. So I think that'll sort of start to sort of trigger things a little bit there. All right, cool, and that's it from me today.